Hello. Howdy do. It's been a minute. It's been a minute. Everything's crazy. It's fine though. Everything's exactly as crazy as it always is. It's just worse right now. I'm just kidding. That's a terrible joke. I have been pondering. I've been thinking. I've been pondering. I've been ideating. I've been in like a super sort of philosophical, vibey kind of headspace for the last hour or two, because I was intentionally trying to meditate and do some stuff and just make sure I was like ready and chill and good for today for doing this. And I ended up, doing what I tend to do whenever I do that, which is whether or not I was really planning on it. I had some conversations with some entities and stuff, right? And I just I got some fresh perspective on a couple of things that I really wasn't expecting or like planning to like be getting more perspective on and get. Yeah, I don't know. It was just nice. I was just like, I'm gonna cleanse my energy. Everything's gonna be so chill. I'm gonna be so set. And then it was, would you like to have conversation? I was like, guess we're having conversation now. So I have talked about ages ago. One of these sort of spirit friends, I guess, that I have, like they're not technically part of my spirit team. I guess you could argue maybe they technically are. But they're a friend. They're not like assigned to me in any way. It's like it's an animal spirit. I reached out to them. I don't even remember if I reached out to them or if they just kind of showed up one day. It's a long, crazy road from point to point, right? But this particular one is just interesting and exciting to me because it's like the sort of general spirit of a South American big cat. It's a jaguar, right? But it's not like exactly the same jaguar that you think of when you think of like spirit jaguar, because there's so much, like you automatically think of a lot of sort of South American, Central South American stuff with that, and obviously that's like where the animals are at, but it's not like it's just one of those entities that they like ran into. I didn't go looking for like, I'm gonna look at Aztec stuff or I'm gonna look at like Inca stuff or whatever. That wasn't part of the plan. I just sort of went and ran into them one day. So they've been the way that you could argue they are technically part of my team is they've been acting as a protector of mine for a long time since we met. And again, that's sort of like a semi-informal agreement. It's literally it's partially just like a, hey, call me up when you got stuff you want done. Like if you want help with something, like I'll do some stuff. I'm looking for some stuff to do. Call me up. It's that kind of like thing. And occasional offerings and occasional whatever, but like it's mostly just like, hey, we going to the bar? Call me if you're going to the bar. Oh, we're gonna go, like, you're gonna go journeying and doing stuff? Give me a call. I'll hang out and make sure nobody swipes at you. It's just this sort of relatively relaxed vibe of a connection, and I enjoy it. It's been good for me so far. But what's been happening the last 6 to 12 months is I've just been doing less spiritual stuff overall. To be like really blunt with it. Hello, Lid. Good to see you. How you doing? So I was sitting there, and I was just like, we were just having a conversation for the first time in ages. I'm doing pretty well. How are you? I've been all over the gosh darn diggity dang place. But I'm doing all right tonight, and I'm feeling good about everything. So I was just saying, like, as I was like meditating and chilling out and getting myself ready for all of this, old spirit friend that I haven't talked to in a while was like, "Hey, what's up?" And obviously I talk a lot about like just chatting with spirits, right? Like that's kind of what I do. That's more than doing stuff and actions and like spells a lot of the time. I'm just kind of talking to people and seeing where things are at, and if I need to like poke at something or nudge or what, pull, tug, whatever, if I need to kind of push some influence out, I can just do that. But also I can like call in favors and like a lot of what I do is just spirit communication. And then if I really need to do something, then I'll do something, right? So this relationship has just been not very present because I haven't been doing a lot of stuff. So I was very like happy to kind of just see them and talk for a while and see what's up. And they gave me the most, it wasn't hilarious, the most hilarious line, get all super influencer with it, right? But no, they just said something to me that was like, it was very poignant, but it was put in a way that I never would have said it, and I kind of loved it. Because, you know, they're like, you good? You haven't been doing stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. You know. And I was sort of checking in with them too, like, are you good? What's going on? What's going down? And they literally said, I am as good as I can be as one who is part of the collective, or something. It was something very similar to that. I wrote it down, but there's no reason to pull it up now. But it's just like, I am doing as well as I can be for being one of the many. That's what he said. I was like, bro, the spirits are also out here living the same lives as us, right? Like, everything is crazy for everybody. And we all kind of understand that we're all just in the big collective groups that we're in. So it's like, he was literally just, I'm doing as well as I possibly can be given the circumstances of the groups I belong to and the circumstances surrounding me. And I'm like, you and me both, buddy. It was such a funny way to put it, and it was such a relatable statement that it's just, you know, I have those times where I'm like, I still have those times of, I don't think I'm talking to myself. I've been doing this long enough. I'm talking to a something. But every once in a while I'm like, what if I am just talking to myself? And this one, just the way it was phrased. Yeah, exactly. What a nice way to just say, I mean, I'm here. Like, that's exactly, it was like, but it was so, like, intentionally phrased. Like, I could feel, you know, and, you know, you're always kind of translating spirit stuff anyway. You're not really speaking a language. You're just vibing back and forth and getting words out of it if you can. Getting words or images or whatever out of it. But just, like, this, like, really eloquent, intentional way of saying, I am exactly as good as I can be given the context. It's like, and I respect the hell out of that, my guy. Yeah, Ron knows what's up. Ron's part of the crew. He knows what's going on. The Mercury retrograde thing. I had the same thought. I knew that Mercury was retrograde, like, in the back of my brain. Like, I knew roughly what the dates were and everything. But I also was just, like, not even thinking about it at all until I saw the post about it being over. Was it just yesterday? I know the dates, but I'm forgetting what day it actually was. But yeah, just because I was thinking about, like, I haven't been tracking any Astro stuff super, super closely, but I've been here. I've been feeling the energy, and the funny thing to me is I don't think the energy as a whole has been that crazy for the last, like, month or so. It's just my life's been crazy. But, like, the broad strokes energy, there's crazy stuff happening, but it's not, like, that crazy. And so, like, you know, I think we do have a number of things still in retrograde, because I think this was the thing where, like, a bunch of stuff went retrograde kind of all at the same time, and then Mercury was, like, the last in that cycle or something. Am I right? Yeah. Yeah. Saturn's in retrograde, Neptune is retrograde, Pluto is retrograde. So, like, those are all things that we're not going to feel as much because they're not, like, the personal planets, they're not, like, the inner planets, but it's still just, like, vibe shift, right? So it's just funny Yeah, I thought it was the starting day that it ended. Yeah, it like even the Mercury retrograde this time was kind of chill. Like it wasn't chill. It was like kind of chill compared to I had a thing on the day that it ended that was ridiculous, like just a technology thing, technology and communications, the normal stuff. But it was just, oh, is it Chiron too? Do I have? I probably have Chiron on this chart somewhere. Let's see. That's Ceres is retrograde. Interesting. Do I not have Chiron on this chart? That's crazy. That's actually wild of me to have like Pallas, Ceres, and all that stuff. Like have a bunch of asteroids on here and not have Chiron. I trust you. Yeah, it's just like there's been I guess because everything was like everything felt insane for like 4 months, right? And so we've been in this weird kind of okay spot with again just like the broad strokes energy and like some of the broad strokes astrology. There's been some intense moments within that, but yeah, just like I said, like I feel like I've been experiencing a lot, but it's been stuff that's like in my chart and it's not just like out in the world, which is a really interesting. I don't know. It's interesting to me to experience that after so long of it being full throttle intensity, and it's gonna come back. I know it's gonna come back. I feel like I probably know when it's gonna come back. Not, but like I'm just kind of given. I'm gonna take what we're given in this one, and the fact that Mercury retrograde wasn't crazy, the fact that like the vibes are a little weird, but they're not like what pulsing like why is this one it's not like EDM music right now. It was like EDM music crazy for a while, and we're not at jazz crazy. This is such a ridiculous metaphor. It was EDM crazy, and we're kind of in this like it's not this there it's not like easy listening jazz. It's just kind of like folk music. It's like crazy folk music. We're in the what's that one song that like everybody knows of the it's yeah, doesn't matter. The metaphor is not worth this. But but it's just yeah, we're in like crazy folk song territory where we were in crazy EDM, and I feel like we're headed for crazy jazz. Too bad, Kayla. I'm trusting you anyway because I don't feel like Googling it to check right now. Yeah, that's fair. Tech stuff was fine, but emotional stuff was yeah. That's pretty reasonable, honestly. Because it's weird because like yeah, I won't get into the nitty gritty of Mercury retrograde right now, but it just affects so many things, but it can't like Mercury retrograde doesn't dominate anything. It just messes with a bunch of stuff. Like that's always kind of how I think about it, and that's why, even like while I was still in college, and like Mercury retrograde as a concept was slowly coming into the zeitgeist as like everybody was on CoStar and all that stuff, like that sort of period of time, and maybe that's just because I was in college that everybody had CoStar, but CoStar was in the process of getting big, whereas like nobody really talks about CoStar anymore, so it's kind of like on a decline, but people are using other astrology stuff. Right, I digress. So Mercury retrograde was like a topic of conversation in college, and people would be so freaked out about it, and I was kind of like, it's worth noting, but I don't feel like we should be as freaked out as everybody is about this. And so yeah, it's just that's sort of the way that I think about it now, of like Mercury retrograde touches on a bunch of stuff, but it's never gonna be a big wrecking ball of a time. Like it'll be a lot to get through. It'll be a pain in the butt, but it should be like fine. It should be fine bad and not terrible bad. Yeah, bring on the sax. I agree. It's about saxophone solo time in the energy of the world. Excuse me. I don't know why. I feel like I this is such a ridiculous. I normally I use my intuition when I'm doing astrology things, but I don't normally try to intuit astrology stuff when I haven't looked at the chart. But I feel like there's something Mars related that happens in like 3 months, and that's drum solo time. That's like, oh shit's getting crazy again. I like about 3 months, but I'm whether or not I'm right about that doesn't matter to me in the slightest. I'm just enjoying that it's not currently crazy drum solo time. Yeah. Hard rock and Dorothy style music. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Like there are vibes that we know how to move to and know how to flow with. And like sometimes the music of the universe just is not the kind that we know how to move to. The world needs more cowbell. That's amazing. I kind of like it, not gonna lie. I don't want to think what the energetic. I mean, I do want to think. I'm currently thinking about what would the energetic equivalent of more cowbell be. It just seems like I don't. It would have to be. Honestly, I feel like a Mercury, um, like an angular hit of Mercury on your personal chart would be kind of like cowbell. Is that like just like clunk crash kind of a like quick hit, doesn't resonate very long, but just that's a ridiculous metaphor, but I like it. Um, because I've just been, yeah, like given the general energy and given, yeah. Everything. Like, I've just been like while I was meditating and post sort of spirit friend conversation, I was back to like sort of analyzing subtle energies because that's just what I fucking do, I guess. Again, I do a lot of talking. I do a lot of just like looking at energy and pulling on it if I need it and putting it back if I don't, and that kind of thing. Um, so I was realizing because again, I sat down to like sort of meditate, but really just to do an energy cleanse. And I realized because I've been sort of playing with and like finding and figuring out a slightly new relationship with some of the energies that I already used. Partially because of Taoism stuff, I was doing. I was gonna say I was doing more research. I technically wasn't doing more research, but I was just like engaging more with the material that I have access to already, around like the Taoism stuff, and it got me back into thinking about the way that like the yin and the yang energy stuff sort of feels in a practical sense, because it's very easy to just talk about or read about in a book, but when it's coming to like practical in your life as a person who deals with energies and feels and understands energies as a whole, it's kind of like, okay, but what does that mean? What do you do with it? And I realized I've been definitely not doing it wrong. There's a specific cleansing that I've been using. Okay, I have two really closely connected trains of thought that I'm trying to keep separate and stay on topic here, but I might just end up switching between the two, because so there's an energy cleansing thing that I've been doing for years, since before I got a Reiki attunement or anything. I don't even think I'd started going to my Reiki person yet or anything. But I was just doing this thing that's a very similar type of a cleansing exercise that a Reiki practitioner might tell you to do, where I was just breathing in this sort of like breathing in soft white light, letting it sort of fill the body. So it's kind of like a body scan at the same time as like an energy flush, right? Sort of combining techniques, like letting this soft white light thing like come into body, penetrate, feel, and like push out some of the grosser, gunkier stuff. And it's darker, but it's not like black energy. It's just like musty, smoky gray, right? It's just pushing all that stuff out, like, and like allowing that energy that's coming in to just sort of take the place. So it's not even like pushing, it's just like taking the place of, right? And then releasing that old stuff, right? And I knew what I was doing when I was doing that was releasing the sort of, I'm going to refer to it as gray now. At the time, I was just like the dark, smoky stuff, right? Like the dark energy, but not like dark energy, right? Like not that kind of dark. Excuse me. So I was expelling all of this darker, smokier, muddier energy to be recycled. I was either letting it go up or letting it go down or whatever. Didn't really matter what happened to it, but the point was I wasn't like destroying the energy or trying to or anything, and I wasn't expelling the energy. I was just letting fresh energy take the place of this older, gunked up, mustier stuff. And letting the mustier, gunkier stuff go back out into the world and settle wherever it wanted to settle to sort of reprocess and recycle and come back into its own and become a new thing, right? Death themes. Recycling is huge in death. Death witch, death worker, spirit worker, death entities. There's all kinds of death and recycling type stuff. So I knew that energy was being recycled somehow. So what I was sort of coming to in my meditative cleansing situation earlier, okay, have a good night, was I've been like intentionally intaking like specifically this like sort of white light thing, but there is like a darker, blacker, inkier energy that's still prevalent, like, right? So it's if we're thinking in terms of like yin and yang, then I was like only intaking yin, right? Basically. And so there's the yin is the sort of like the moonlight, right? And these like feminine energy qualities, right? But like there is healing in that, and there is like just listing qualities, right? Like yin would be like water, healing, relaxation, certain level of indulgence, potentially overindulgence, right? Like a lot of Venusian stuff. And then all of like the yang energies sort of stereotypically would be like fire and exertion and energy, like action, active energy, right? That kind of thing. And so essentially what I was doing to replace, I was replacing old energy that did need to be gotten rid of with only one type of energy. And it was fine, you know, I was like, it's not gonna do anything bad to you to do it that way. But just kind of what I realized in this particular session was that like it's gonna be much better for me and much more sort of recuperating for me if I take in both, because, you know, symbolically the yin is this like soft white light and the yang is this sort of like intense inky darkness, right? But practically speaking, yang is gonna, like the yang energy is gonna be that like punchier, hypier stuff. Like the fact that it's just like black and looks like night in this theoretical metaphor doesn't matter, you know, like white is not good and black is not bad, right? They're just things that exist. So yeah, what I realized is like once I started intaking both and letting them sort of letting both of those sit wherever they wanted to within my body, I was kind of feeling better faster, because I was still pushing out that like gray, smoky, musty stuff. Like all of the stagnant energy that needed to go was still going away and being replaced, but I was sort of like replacing it more efficiently because I think part of what was happening probably was because yin would be more passive and yang would be more active. I was intentionally replacing the more passive energy, and the more active energy would have just recuperated itself. But in my little experiment before this, realizing that taking in both made me feel better faster, it was like, yeah, it was just it was automatically balanced as opposed to having to rebalance itself after I did the cleansing, right? And you know, you can stop me if I lose you, but I'm just gonna keep going because this is the part that I thought was really interesting, because like all of that is cool and all of that makes sense to me, sort of just on a baseline energetic level. I was thinking this isn't that complex, but this would not do well in a TikTok if I tried to make one about it. It's too in the weeds. But I love the like weird energy dynamics stuff. Anyway, subtle energy's cool. So the gray energy, what I was kind of like what is that? This like gray, smoky, sludgy stuff. What is that? And why does it need to be gone? I know that it's recycling, but kind of like where is it going, right? The imagery that I was getting while thinking that and sort of like analyzing that, mulling it over and everything, is this like, well, the gray stuff is this kind of, it's like the white and the black are like, you know, it's similar to stone and water, and over time the water erodes the stone and it becomes sand. Like the eroded parts fall off the rock basically and become like part of the water, part of the ocean, part of the, you know, these two pieces are like at odds enough over an amount of time that they are sort of fighting each other. So each small wave breaks over the rock, and over the time the rock breaks down. So it's like that kind of imagery of like, that's this sort of new combination of like the sand in the water and being like splurred, like swirled up and into it. It's like this combination of like the two. I'm mixing metaphors now, but the water and the rock makes sense if you're thinking like yin and yang, but in this case I'm just gonna make it two rocks. White rock and black rock. You just like keep smashing and smashing and smashing until the two rocks basically are powder, and they become this weird mixture of like, there's just gray powder. And I'm mixing metaphors because this is how it was shown to me, but it's like the powders of the black rock and the white rock kind of become this goopy emulsion of spent energy. Right. I need water. So like as you're going through your day and you're using the yin energy and you're using the yang energy in their, like, you know, they're getting used up in sort of natural function of how you do your stuff in your day, over time they're gonna lose their shine a little bit. They're gonna decompose a little bit. The energy is gonna be used up, and there's still sort of like this residual energy that contains the original pieces of the two things, but they have negated each other. Honestly, I probably could have skipped this whole thing by just using an acids and bases analogy instead. They've been neutralized. The acid and the base have made their reaction. Your task has been done. Your energy's been used, and you're left with a neutral solution. That would have been so much faster if I just said that from the start. But so now that new neutral solution, the gray, the stagnant, there's not much energy left in it because it's just kind of been spent, and the two rocks have hit each other. The reaction's over. That's the stuff that needs to get out of your body, out of your energy field, out of your everything. Not so that it can just... Okay, fair enough. Rocks is better. It's a yeah. I get it doesn't matter. Yeah, I'm glad the rocks works better. Um, so you still need to like get the sludgy spent energy stuff out and off, so that it can sort of recuperate itself and yeah, like recycle itself. And what's kind of happening, regardless of the process, is that gray energy is over time going to then get distilled back out into its two original parts. So if the gray energy is like something that is dead and decaying on the forest floor, so many metaphors. If that's the thing, over time, the soft tissue and the hard material will be separated and they will become their own things again, and like yeah, stuff gets broken down by fungus and insects and blah 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 blah. That gets food and that's sort of like consumed. It's a new type of energy and then it's moving on, right? Life cycle stuff. And then you've got your like hard, crusty calcium deposit bones, right? So that's that process of like thing on forest floor that died and is being broken down by the processes and those the soft stuff and the hard stuff getting re-separated out. That is that comparable energy distillation of like the gray energy returning to the lighter white and the lighter white, heavier dark energy, so that they can go about and like keep moving and keep cycling through in new ways, right? So to tie it all together, part of what was happening while I was having this conversation with my spirit friend and I was doing this cleansing thing was I was able to give some of that dull, used gray energy to my spirit friend and just hand it to him, essentially. And like he wanted it. Like when I was like, "Do you want this?" He was like, "Yeah." And he was able to eat it and consume it. And so it's this weird like you probably know this about me at this point. I love having the like science and natural world explanations and interactions and metaphors for the spiritual stuff, because I think it's all essentially functioning on the same metaphysical physical laws. Like I think the metaphysical laws and the physical laws are a lot closer to each other than anybody seems to think they are, right? And again, like laws, metaphysical laws, I don't there's arguments to be made for all of this stuff, but that's just like seeing that as the progression of getting the rocks, the imagery of the rocks crashing together and the powder, and this like powder being an emulsion of stuff and that needing to break apart again, and the imagery of like the forest floor and the dead thing and the being decomposed and the being separated out into two parts, and seeing my spirit friend just chew on a hunk of this gray spent energy like it's a ham hock was crazy to me. Because I was like, oh, the energy doesn't need to go like the visualization that I had been having for years, knowing that this stuff was recycling, was like, okay, it's going back down into the ground, it's being sort of like filtered in the ground somehow, and that's kind of what's recycling the energy. So now I'm like, that still makes sense, because a filter would be separating out the two pieces, but like that's not the only way. That energy that to me is useless in a physical body, it's useless to carry around stagnant energy, can be consumed and used in this sort of like he's kind of underworld. He's definitely underworld adjacent. He's not like from the underworld, but he is underworldy. Yeah. Yeah, that was just so cool to realize, like, not only could he do that, but like he wanted to do that, because I've done offerings of these like brighter, livelier energies before, and I think that's fine, right? There's no problem with that. But the fact that there are entities that not only are willing to, but want to consume the energy that to me is a waste product is just cool as hell. It's just though, like, again, like finding the similarities between the laws of nature and the laws of metaphysics and spirituality and spirits and stuff. Energy. It's all energy. I firmly believe it's all just energy of some sort, but it's like subtle energies mirroring denser energies. I don't actually have the right words to phrase that, but you know what I mean. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, reuse, recycle, digest, all that stuff. Yeah, it's because the other metaphor that I was given, which is crazy that I got so many and but it was like, it's sort of like this thing of like nuclear fission and nuclear fusion, where like there's a intense energetic component to putting these two things together and taking them back apart. And so it's kind of like we, by exerting the energy, are fusing them together, and then these other things are taking the energy that they get out of pulling those two things apart again. Like, that's crazy. But like, obviously not crazy, but it's just like I was having a mind blown moment with all of that. And I was just so excited about it. And I was like, this has to be what I talk about on the live. Because, yeah, it's one of those things where it makes something that I've sort of understood and believed for years makes so much more sense and gives it so much more context in a really fun way for me. So, I wanted to share it. I could literally, my desire is to just keep rambling, but I am confident that I have made all of my points. I could probably introduce 3 more metaphors. I don't think that's gonna help anything. I don't think that's gonna like help my case. I'm not even really making a case. I'm just excited and talking about the thing that I experienced and sort of like learned and understood from this. But yeah, that was awesome for me. I was like, this is great. On the topic of like the energies kind of mirroring each other, it feels very as above so below to me, and I say that like meaning the like subtle energies and the more like noticeable physical energies, where, like I said, like I do believe that it's all just energy, and I think that the systems are really, really similar for both, but one we can see and one we can't. we can like understand, if you're a spiritual person, you can contextualize the subtle energies going through the same processes as the physical energies. But it's just like, yeah, like there are a bunch of I forget if this is one of the books that I read. I think it was one of the Lynn McTaggart books. Was it The Intention Experiment? I think it was The Intention Experiment. They were sort of I wasn't doing stuff with Yggdrasil, but Yggdrasil was a part of my meditation as well. So that's fun. Also, I mean, Odin's candle's lit. But yeah, I mean, like, it is the energy sort of, the story and metaphor of the world tree as this thing that energies can move up and down, and like, it's all, okay, we are gonna get into the weeds here. You're either gonna get this immediately, or you're gonna think I'm insane for a second. But this is very similar to the Yggdrasil thing. It's kind of like the same energetic principle. So the way that I view Yggdrasil working, right? Like if you are going to Yggdrasil as a way of like facilitating transportation between worlds, because that's a thing that some practitioners do. I've sort of done that. I do view it as kind of like the way that a tree intakes water, and like, you know, intakes water from the ground in the root system, and like puts the little cell moving through the cells, and like, you know, basically little teeny tiny waters moving through tubes and stuff through the tree to get up to the leaves and all this stuff, right? Like that's an, an extremely rudimentary explanation of like how the tree intakes water and uses the water, right? The water moving through the tree is like an integral part of the life of the tree, and it's not, you know, the water moving through the tree isn't creating any energy, but it is part. Like, bear with me here. It's like it's part of the energy of the tree. Like, whatever energy it takes to do that is part of what the tree just does. Kind of in a similar way to like how once we've taken in food, we don't do the digestion. The digestion just happens. Like this, the energy part is happening, and it is energy, and there's energy being used in a sense, and but it's also being taken up. You know what I mean. So this is, how do I want to phrase this? Very similar to that, and to how I view the way that, and Yggdrasil works. And I do view the same thing kind of happening in reverse with you if you're coming back down or whatever. That's fair. I have experienced one of these like more cosmic entity things. It was presented to me. I think this is more or less accurate to kind of what it is. It was presented to me like a planet in space. This is gonna sound insane. I need to just stop saying that and spit it out. It looked like a huge planet, like the kind of planet the size of 10,000 suns kind of planet, right? Like something out of fucking Star Trek. And you could see that the planet was this weird combination. It was like, it was connected to it was connected to the Akashic Records vaguely. Like the entirety of the Akashic Records fit into the equivalent of like 4 square blocks on this giant planet. So this energetic emanation of a planet, whatever the hell you want to think of it as, was like part hard drive, part generator, and what was generating energy out of it was the transfer and movement of information across the channels. Yeah. So this is, again, you're getting more metaphors out of me, whether you like it or not. It was like when the energy moved through the channels that were sort of ingrained into it. Like the entire planet wasn't a channel, but it was like, you know, there were hard parts and there were soft parts, and the soft parts were the channels, right? And so as the information moved through the channels of the planet, the fact that it was moving was generating energy the way that a magnet moving through coils generates electricity. Like if you've ever seen that experiment where you take a strong magnet, you take a copper pipe, and you drop the magnet, or is it a copper pipe? It must be a copper pipe. I'm pretty sure it's a copper pipe. And you drop the magnet into the pipe, and it takes the magnet like forever. It takes the magnet like 5 times as long as you would expect to come to the bottom, because it's not just gravity that's working on it, because there is a magnetic field and like a sort of electrical field, whatever, being generated around the magnet as it falls. So it's that kind of logic of the way that the magnet moving through the tube slows down because there's extra energy and extra stuff being exerted upon the magnet and being generated by this movement through the tube. That concept is the way that this planet generates energy. Planet. Energetic emanation. This giant planet looking spiritual motherfucker. The movement of information from point A to point B in this giant crazy library hard drive planet thing generated the energy that the planet could output. So this is like cosmic scale information, right? Like I said, like what we think of as the Akashic Records takes up a small portion of this huge thing. So it was kind of mind-blowing at the time to like perceive that, because again, that's like how the universe works level shit that I would love some kind of like I will never in 10,000 lifetimes get a scientific explanation for that. I can only take what I know of physical scientific principles and attempt to apply them to this metaphysical thing that I experienced. But it's just like the way that I experience gods and things, right? Like there is that element of like awe that's in those experiences. Even there's an element, like a small experience of awe in just having the candles lit. It's not the same as when I'm standing in front of a god and astral and like having a conversation with a deity. Holy shit. It's not that kind of awe, but there's just this like that like thing that people talk about, that like spark of divinity, that like we all have a spark of divinity inside us, but like you experience these larger divine creatures, larger spiritual entities, and you just feel the whoa, right? You feel like that thing that comparable to like feeling bass in your chest when there's a really strong subwoofer, like, but that bass is just the feeling of awe being around a god. I felt like that, and I felt that same thing with dragons and other stuff. I felt like that looking at this crazy giant planet thing. Yeah, and okay, that's a good point. So what was so interesting about it was it still wasn't exactly perpetual energy, because other things that were not like the planet's doing were the things that were transferring the information. So this is one of those thinking of the world in context makes us all look like ants. And, you know, ants are capable of being like a colony of ants. Like one ant doesn't do that much, but a colony of ants builds a whole infrastructure and a whole little world and ecosystem and whatever. Maybe not ecosystem. You know what I mean? They build their own whole little home and world and stuff, right? If you think about us on the scale of like we're the ants, we are building incredibly complex structures as like a group of entities, and there's this like transfer of knowledge amongst individual humans and this immense effort amongst humans to put up and build this incredible skyscraper or whatever, like building, metaphorical building that we're talking about, right? There's a lot of energy transfer and a lot of like information transfer and all that stuff that's happening among the people. That's like the kind of thing where it's like those kinds of transfers of energy that the humans are pushing is what the planet is generating its energy off of. So the planet is not moving information. The planet is intaking the energy from the movement of information, and that's what it's generating off of. And so it's crazy. Like this is while I was exploring sort of like what is the same way that I'm like, once you find the space where your higher self is, you can find that frequency again. You can just explore there. I was going like up and up and up that in like this white. You getting another metaphor, or maybe this is one's a simile. I don't know. I guess it's a. So I was sort of going up in magnitudes from the point where my higher self is to see what higher energies there are until you get to just like source. So as I was doing that, as I was in these sort of like exponentially large sort of what looked to me like the points of like harmonic resonance on a string or something, like as I was like exponentially jumping up those, that's what I did to go and find and see this crazy planet library hard drive generator. And you know, that's just how I experience these things, is sometimes you just gotta look. I was like, if I just keep going, what's up there? So I was like looking, because you can kind of like, we all have, if you think of source as a concept, you have a thing that you see and a thing that you think and a thing that you feel a little bit, even if it's subtle. But so I was like, I know the vague general shape of what's up there and sort of how to talk to it, you know? But I was just like, as you do like really hype up and jump up those levels, it gets harder and harder to interpret what you're seeing, right? Like that's why source, if I think about source does just look like a white light, like, and not like the soft chill white light that I'm using to like as part of a way to like clear out my energy. No, source is like the blinding light that people like the energy that people talk about with angels, that like blinding energy light, again, like times 10,000, right? Like that kind of, it's that type of light but so much more intense. Like that's what I experience the closer that I get to source. So as I was getting as close as I kind of could to source, that's how I saw the crazy planet thing. And I just looked. I just went there and I just looked around and that's what I fucking saw. Source is energy, yeah. In my interpretation, anyway. This is why I'm like, I don't think of, like, I think the way that a lot of monotheists think is that the higher up you go, eventually it's all God. And I think that is a gross oversimplification. Because that's a whole other conversation. Source is not the only thing at the level of source. But source is fundamental to all of the other things. So it's like what else besides source is fundamental to stuff? Well, if source is like the generative thing, right? If source is where all of the energy comes from because source is energy, you need something to take, it requires something to take down some of the things that have been built so that new things can be built, right? So this is where it's like, if you're a Christian, you might interpret that as like, what I'm saying is source is God. That's fine. I'm not going to fight you. But where I am going to fight you, if you're a Christian, is the destructive force, the thing that takes down some of the things that came from source, isn't the devil, because it's not evil. Because, like, just energy, period, that, like, high level of energetic creation and stuff, you got it. You got there. That high level of energetic creation, some stuff's just gonna fall apart because you can't maintain it. But some stuff needs to be taken down, and the destruction of things that need to be taken down is not an evil act. It's just a thing that needs to happen sometimes. And it can be done in an evil way. But yeah, like that thing that is emitting all of the energy that all of the stuff comes from isn't God. Unless you start thinking in like Old Testament God kind of ways, which I don't think Old Testament God is the God either, right? But that's just me, right? You know where I'm coming from. But like that thing where like Old Testament God is not afraid to destroy shit. That part of the equation is required. There is still a level of cosmic balance that has to happen. Because there is still on that cosmic level, stuff needs to be broken apart and be recycled. So, my understanding is that the counterpoint to Source is chaos. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's a reasonable thought process to have. I get why people think that, but I just think, like I said, I think it's a gross oversimplification, because you just need like Source is not particularly good with particulate. Source is not good with teeny tiny itty bitty little bitty stuff. So like there's stuff that is happening, and that is like stuff that is part of Source technically that handles the smaller details, and stuff that is part of that thing technically that handles the smaller details, right? Like that's kind of how we get our like higher self, but then like is there like a highest self above our higher selves and all that stuff. Like that's kind of how that works, right? Like where we are the version of us. I am the version of me that takes care of stuff at this energetic frequency. There are bits and pieces of me that make up me that do things at other energetic frequencies, right? Like that version of the me that does stuff, that does work in my sleep, is working at a different energetic frequency. And the version of me that's above me, like my higher self, like that's doing work at its own energetic frequency. So yeah, it's just like, and in the same way that there are things that are like working for Source at every level, there are things that are working for chaos at every level, and there are things that just need to be broken down. And so like it is an understandable interpretation that when you have worked to build something, anything that takes that thing you built down is bad and evil. There's an understandable interpretation of information, because you put that energy and put your knowledge and put your resources, like monetary resources, energetic resources, whatever, mental resources. You put all that energy into building that thing. But at some point, the thing needs to come down. And that, in the thing that makes you feel good, the thing doesn't come crumbling down until long after you're gone. But sometimes things need to come down before you're gone, and that will feel bad and that will feel sad, but that does not mean that the thing that took it down is evil. And it doesn't, and it doesn't mean that the thing needs to come down and that's a slight on you, right? Like this sort of, there is this cosmic level of building and destruction that has nothing to do with our personal feelings. It's like going back to the we are ants level. Every house that has been destroyed by a natural disaster, I'm not saying it was a good thing that the house got destroyed, right? But at some point the house is going to be destroyed. Destruction is part of the way everything works. So yeah, exactly. Like the tsunami that wipes out half of a country's homes, a half is crazy. I'm thinking of specifically the tsunami in Japan from, like, what was that, 2011? I think something like that. Like that tsunami is not evil, but that tsunami is a force of destruction, right? So it gets really intense and really hard to get at the subtleties when we're sort of like making these judgments of things as evil. There are evil acts in the world, but destruction is not an evil act inherently. You can do destruction in an evil way. Well, thanks for coming to my TED Talk. So that's kind of how the universe works in my understanding. Yeah, essentially. Yeah, I would just kind of, I would, in my desire of explaining it, the way I wish to explain it, I would just say that it's source all the way up and chaos all the way up, and source all the way down and chaos all the way down, right? Like I would say that creation and destruction are concepts that they're still kind of illustrative. Excuse me. Like, creation is part of what Source does, but it's not the only thing that Source does, because Source also does management. And destruction is part of what Chaos does, but it's not the only thing that Chaos does, because Chaos also is this land of happy accidents and new experiences and exploration, right? Like, both Source and Chaos can lead to exploration and discovery via completely different methods. So I'm not saying that Source is creation and Chaos is destruction. I'm using creation and destruction as the primary functions to illustrate the things that Source and Chaos do. Yeah. No, and I understand the desire to simplify it, because who wouldn't want to simplify everything that I just said? Because that's insane to say that every time you want to talk about it. But that's the kind of person I am. That's how I want to talk about it. I want to talk about it in those micro niche gritty details. But if you wanted to simplify it, you could use that as your way of simplifying it. I just wanted to make the distinction, since I am having this conversation and I'm telling it to you, I wanted to make the distinction of I'm using that to illustrate what I mean rather than saying exactly what the thing is. Yeah. Do you got anything? I saw that you said you have questions, but you don't want to ask them here. Do you have any questions you want to ask here, or I'm probably gonna grab the book in a second and do our little wrap up thingy, but yeah, that's completely fair. Yeah, the hires and the mids and because one of the things that threw me for a loop and still kind of does when I think about it was after I had found my higher self, I had somebody say, I had referred to my higher as my highest, and somebody that I was like talking to about some of this stuff was like, oh no, I think it might have even been a client. I think it was somebody I was doing a reading for. I'm pretty sure it was. And they said, well, no, it's who you're talking about is your higher self, but that's not your highest. And I went, what? What do you mean? So it is mind-bending stuff. The mids and the hires and the highest and everything. I think um, my basic understanding of that is that your higher self is kind of the highest version that you have direct access to and that has direct influence on your life. Anything higher than your higher self, any of that, like your highest self stuff, your higher self at that point becomes the middleman, which, again, crazy to say that your higher self is a middleman. But that's kind of what it is, because, like, your higher self, my higher self has higher selves, but my higher self is my higher self and is the only one that's really reasonable for me to communicate with regularly and is already freakishly high compared to me, right? It is mind-bending stuff. And so, like, all of that things with, like, mid-selves, like, that's, I kind of just stopped referring to them as mid-selves and just started calling them my higher or just my parts, my pieces. Like, they're all part of my stuff. And plenty of them are higher than me, so they could be just lumped together as my hires, even if they're like my middle self or my mid selves or whatever. They all make up the same stuff. But my higher self that I've known for a while and that I like communicate with is my higher self, like, sort of, period. But there's technically something higher. That highest self exists, but doesn't interact with me directly unless I reach out directly, basically. Whereas my higher self, like, has an actual vested interest in me and what I do and how I do my stuff. And so, I digress. Gotcha. Gotta just call them the me's. Hey, all my me's out there, how y'all doing? But this is kind of why I'm making these distinctions too, right? Because there are also technically lower selves. Like, I am technically the higher self of some of my pieces, which is crazy, and I don't know all of the details of that. But there is stuff that works on, like, lower energetic planes than me here now. That is part of me. Like, I think honestly, to be 100% for real with you, at a certain point, I created a higher self, and that version of me kind of just kept going, and, like, it's still a part of me, but I think technically I'm, like, higher than it, like, now. I don't know if I was before, but, like, I think that thing that I kind of created is now one of my, like, lower selves, that I'm kind of in charge of it. And that's part of what does some of the underworld work. When I'm not intentionally in astral and meditating and doing that work on purpose, that version of me, that thing that I made, is the thing that's doing that work. I am 98% confident that that's how it all works, and that's, like, yeah, it was kind of, I don't even, like, it was intentional to, like, create it, but I also, it's kind of like, it's this weird thing where you're partially creating something and you're partially discovering something and you're partially letting something discover itself. Like, if I keep going, we're going to be here for another half hour, and I do need to get off at some point. But yeah, it's crazy shit. I don't know enough about how lower selves work to even know if everybody has them. I assume they do, but just nobody talks about it. So I don't have reference. Like, everybody wants to talk about their higher selves, but there's this like responsibility that I have to myself, and these lower pieces of me that I have to take care of to a certain extent. So it's weird The deeper you get, the weirder it is. Truly. Weird shit, but very cool. Yes, bibliomancy time. But I mean, like, your lower self should be fine. It shouldn't be like, yeah, it shouldn't be anything that you have to be worried about. It's just like a thing. Okay. Like, I would almost say, like, your dream self, like, if I were going to give an example of a lower self, I feel like the version of you that dreams kind of is your lower self. It's less physical than this piece, right? It's less physical than your human self. So it can still do some of that, like, realm traveling stuff, but it can't, like, fly around exactly. It's, like, in this morphic, amorphous, like, astral adjacent thing, but it just doesn't have, like, as much freedom. Like it's almost like every time that you dream, like, every version of you that's in a dream would be a lower self technically, but they're, like, really tiny. I think that's kind of, that's the best I got for now. Without, again, I don't have, there's not books about this that I can read and research. This is all channeling intuition, my best guess. Anyway, yes, book time. Okay. And you know the deal. I don't even have to say the thing, because you've been here for basically all of them. Alright. This is passage 70. My words are very easy to understand, very easy to practice. No one under heaven can understand them, no one can practice them. Words have ancestors, deeds have masters. If people don't understand this, they don't understand me. Few understand me, and this is my value. Therefore, the sage wears rough clothing and carries jade inside. Even just, like, reading the first line or first couple lines, I was like, that's hilarious. That's amazing. I know I've read this one on live before. I do actually really like this one. I'll go ahead and read it again one more time real quick. But my words are very easy to understand, very easy to practice. No one under heaven can understand them, no one can practice them. Words have ancestors, deeds have masters. If people don't understand this, they don't understand me. Few understand me, and this is my value. Therefore, the sage wears rough clothing and carries jade inside. So yeah, that's, like, and talk about that, like, spark of divinity and, like, all that, like, cosmic level talk. What a time, what a day, what a dealio to dealy out, to dealy out, to dilly dally day. It's about time for me to rest and chill. That was a fun live. Thanks for coming. Thanks for, despite the day change and everything, having a different schedule, this feels better for me. I'm gonna stick with this for a little bit and see if we can keep it moving on the Tuesdays. Appreciate you. Thanks for coming. I'll talk to you soon. Have a great night. Goodbye.